thrown into our rivers and blown through the air into our communities. And that's why we're so fucking dysfunctional when we represent the public. Except, see, I'm a higher caliber of a man because I say it man to man, not a little pussy who hides behind a gaffle. So, in turn, I find it offensive. The report from the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety, inconclusive to the impact report of the community, still reflects a negative declaration for the safety and concern of our children. See, Exide is so close to all the little public schools, LAUSD, and all those private schools where Salesian and Roosevelt High School are nearby. And we're impacted by our concern of safety. But Dibbeldorf wouldn't care because he let the gases rise into the valley and fuck up his neighborhood. Dumbass.
Okay, Patricia McAllister.
Hi, my concern is number one here, where you're asking the Director of Planning for an oral status report on the ongoing development of planning policies, work programs, operations. And that man gave the report over there, and I didn't hear a word he said. The mic was turned down. We don't want anything oral. I wanted it in writing. On this agenda, if you click that link, this is project 071175, it's empty, nothing there. You cannot hide the plans of this city. That is public information. Now, I went up to the planning department today, and I'm going to send FOI, Freedom of Information Act, to the executive, to the director, Vincent Bertani. You cannot hide that information. I want to know what the plan is. You got 20,000 of my people, black people, laying on the ground on Skid Row, and then you came in here and said you want to open up an Italian town on Skid Row. I grew up in Chicago around Italians and Jews. The Italians were the drug dealers, and the Jews were the doctors prescribing the drugs. So you put the mob on Skid Row. That's an insult to my people. I want my people off of Skid Row, and there's a plan in the planning department on what you're doing on Skid Row. You can't tell me it's not. Because I went to the planning department in Chicago to find out why they were tearing down homes, and they told me they were trying to get the blacks in the suburbs and the white in the city. And it didn't work out, and that's when they started killing them in 2004. So don't tell me. I know what the planning department is doing. And don't come in here and lower his mic, and he speak for 3 minutes. We can't hear a thing he's saying, and then you say, okay, that's it. I want it in writing. All the plans of this city. And I want my people off Skid Row. And Jose, whatever they call your name, you are over that District 2 of Skid Row. I don't see one illegal alien Mexican laying on the ground down there. I see black people. And I know the plan. Any black person that goes to these social services agencies who are homeless, I don't care if they're doctors, lawyers, teachers, you send them to Skid Row. And then you pump them with dope, and then at night they disappear, organs harvested and sent to Israel. Don't tell me. I know what's going on. And you believe me, you're not going to get away with it because there's a higher power, and he's going to take you all out.
Thank you very much. I believe we have, okay, we'll go now to item number 2 and call that back to order. I understand the maker of this motion, Councilmember Price, is willing to entertain or would like to entertain the discussion on this item once it gets back from committee, correct? From planning department and their research. That's today correct. We're just a referral to the department, correct? That's correct. Okay, but we do have one public speaker on this item. We'll take that person up now. Doug Haynes.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Haynes. I wanted to speak on this item because it's important for you to understand what we've been going through in Hollywood for the past decade in relation to how now you're looking at AB 827. Because of a quirk in AB 283 years ago, the CRA was supposed to protect us, and therefore multi-density zoning was retained, while every area of the city was downzoned due to the inconsistency between the general plan and the community plans. Because of that, we've had entire blocks of historic single-family homes wiped out throughout Hollywood, particularly central Hollywood, because they retained the R4 zoning. Because of that, single-family homes now are going for over $1 million, and no one can afford them except developers because the land is what they're buying, not the houses. So that puts pressure on other areas of the city that are R1 because people who wanted to purchase homes in Hollywood no longer can afford them, and now everyone's being forced out. So please think of us when you're considering the development that's going through Hollywood and what potentially will happen to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question, Doug? Doug, did the Hollywood Neighborhood Council take a position on this bill?
We have not yet addressed it. There are two neighborhood councils that I'm on, East Hollywood Neighborhood Council and Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council, but we will certainly bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will approve this item and refer it to staff for the report to come back to Plum fairly soon, considering this item is making its way through the state legislature. Thank you. Next, so we approve this item without objection. Next item, item number 4, if you could read that into the record, please.
Item 4, Councilman, is a Planning Department report. It's a status update on the various community plan status and the batching schedule for GPAs.
Good afternoon, council members. Craig Weber, City Planning staff, here today to provide the department's report on the status of its community planning program. By way of recap, last year, the City Council and the Mayor endorsed a strategy to accelerate the department's community planning efforts such that all 35 of our community plans would be brought up to date by the year 2024. So this strategy envisioned creating teams of planning and support staff that would be working in geographic regions throughout the city, updating contiguous groups of community plans in phases. And it was envisioned that these phases would take 3 years each. And this accelerated program was in large part funded through an increase to the long-range planning surcharge that is applied to all development fees within the city. And that fee increase was adopted last year. So to date, the majority of new positions that were created in support of the accelerated community plan program have been filled, including a new principal city planner position in the Valley, various senior city planner and other planning level positions throughout the program, as well as a public information officer, GIS specialists, city attorneys, et cetera. So the hiring track and the promotion track for all of the positions that were created has been very optimistic, actually. So with that, I want to walk through the department's preliminary schedule and provide a region-by-region update of where we're at with this program and where things are going. The bottom line being that to date we are on track to have all of the 35 community plans up to date by 2024. So starting on the city's west side, the department anticipates beginning the update of 4 community plans within the west side region this summer, bringing that group to completion in roughly 2021, at which point we would begin the second group. So we would be starting here with the Westchester, Venice, West LA, and Palms Mar Vista community plans initially. In the South and Harbor region, the department just successfully oversaw the adoption of the remaining 2 South Los Angeles community plans and the San Pedro community plan, and would therefore envision beginning efforts to update the Harbor Gateway and Wilmington Harbor City community plans later in this year. And I did want to also highlight that the department just received news that the South and the Southeast Los Angeles community plans have won the American Planning Association local chapter's Outstanding Excellence Award for a comprehensive plan for a large jurisdiction. So we're very pleased and happy to share that news about that very important planning effort. Within the city's central region, there are currently 2 teams that are working presently at the update of community plans for Hollywood, Boyle Heights, Central City, and Central City North. And the department envisions that those plans will wrap up in the 2019 year, at which point we would begin 2 efforts. One, to update the Wilshire and Westlake plan, and the other to update the Silver Lake Echo Park Elysian Valley community plan and the Northeast Los Angeles community plan. So the hope being that those would begin in late 2019, possibly early 2020. And then lastly, in the Valley region, the department began an effort to update 3 community plans in the Southwest Valley in 2017 and envisions beginning an additional effort to begin 3 community plans in the Southeast Valley later in the 2018 calendar year. So those respective efforts would then wrap up in roughly 2020, 2021 respectively, at which point there are 2 remaining groups in the Valley and the North Valley that would begin subsequent to that effort. So this system has all community plans brought up to date by 2024. Some regions are brought up to date much sooner than that. I do want to point out, in as much as news is now starting to break as to which community plans would begin, how central outreach efforts are to the success of this program and to understanding what are the relevant goals and policies for these communities and what are the appropriate zoning tools. So I want to highlight that the department's efforts to begin any of these work programs would initiate through a series of meetings with the neighborhood councils to explain that we're here, that this is happening, what the work effort will likely look like. The department would also hold various community planning classroom events to help educate stakeholders as to what a community plan is and what this update process looks like. And then would hold large-scale community plan kickoff events to begin the process and to begin to identify what the issues and opportunities are within the community. In addition, the department is working with each of the respective council offices for these geographies in fine-tuning the overall outreach strategy. So it's the department's goal to remain in contact with the communities throughout the life of this 3-year work program to find new and innovative ways to reach a broad spectrum of stakeholders. So I just want to highlight that that is what is happening. I also wanted to touch on, in conclusion, mentioning that one of the focal points of this work program will be to effectuate new zoning tools through the city's multi-year Recode LA program that has been ongoing. So one of the challenges in past community planning efforts has been, while we do a great job in identifying goals and policies for the communities, we've often been limited by our ability to implement those goals and policies in meaningful ways. So for example, often our community plans will suggest certain areas should be vibrant, pedestrian-oriented, walkable commercial districts, or we may have goals to preserve low-scale, single-family neighborhoods, but we've been limited with somewhat blunt zoning tools such as C2 and R1. So moving forward, we will have a much richer mix of tools in the toolbox to be able to implement our various goals and policies. So the Boyle Heights and the Central City and Central City North community plans will be the first to spearhead the use of the new Recode tools, and then all subsequent community planning efforts will be utilizing new and enhanced zoning tools through the Recode program. So with that, I would welcome any questions or comments that the committee might have on the program.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Mr. Blumenfield?
Great, thank you. I appreciate the work you're doing. In the Southwest Valley updates, we had a few hiccups, as you know, especially around consistent messaging and the outreach. How are we, and particularly the time lapse where we did it sort of intensively, and then there was a long period of time where people kind of forgot that it was happening, and then we're pushing back. How are we rectifying that problem or those problems?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think we've certainly learned a lot from the Southwest Valley experience in particular. So here we are amidst condensing what has traditionally been a multi-year work effort into a compressed timeline. And so we now have a much better grip on what this 3-year work program will look like, and have been able to identify what the appropriate method of outreach is for each of these components. So for example, I articulated what a lot of our initial efforts would look like in terms of collecting broad stakeholder input, identifying issues and opportunities. What we've taken some time to do now is to better identify when we're at different points in the process. So for example, when we're deep in the weeds working on an environmental impact report or working on refining zoning tools, that we've still identified what is the appropriate method of continual contact. And sometimes that will be continued stakeholder meetings and focus groups. Sometimes that will be enhanced communication through social media and other forums. So I think that's just a very broad overview of the refinements that we're making in the outreach process. I think we provide greater detail if desired.
Can I add to that, Councilmember? I think you bring up a very relevant question on this topic, and what I've asked my staff to do is look at 2 things as part of this process as we gear up for really going into full into more of really a really robust process starting this summer. It's taken us a while to staff up, and we're hoping that we're going to have most of our staff in place this summertime. So what I've asked my staff to do between now and summer, when we really get staffed up, is to look at two things. One of them is to really take a look at our community outreach process and to see what we can do to improve it, to make sure that we can get the widest varieties of opinions expressed and out there and listened to, because we know that this city, when we're looking at this entire city, all 470 square miles, a very diverse city with very diverse opinions. We want to make sure we can listen to all of them and to hear them, and that they all carry some value and weight with the community plan process. So that's one thing that we're going to be looking to see how we can do it better, and we're looking at doing it in different ways. The second thing we're doing is we understand that parts of the process are very public. Especially the first year and the third year, you're in a 3-year cycle, there's a lot of public outreach, but there's going to be this in-between period of time when we're preparing environmental impact reports and doing studies that we're not out in the public. So we're looking at a way that we can make sure that we can be keeping the community members who expressed interest in the council offices and everyone up to date in terms of what's happening, so people understand that just because there may not be a community meeting occurring, that doesn't mean nothing's occurring, that things are happening. And so we're looking at both of those things because it's a very important part of the process.
I appreciate that, and I mean, it's a great thing in some ways, being the guinea pig, because my district and the 3 plans are going first, is a blessing in some ways, but it's also a curse in the way that, these are lessons learned that you're going to apply to other areas as you move forward. But we're suffering under some of the learning curve. So I'm hoping that because of that, we'll be able to go back and maybe do a little bit of catch-up work to bring the community along in an extra way, where once we've got the machine oiled and it's running, we may not have to go do that. But I do think it's important for these early plans, particularly the ones that I'm very familiar with, that we do take that extra step, because I do think there are some gaps we need to fill. In terms of the EIR consultant procurement and assignments, what's the current status of this program, and what has been the feedback from the development community on this?
By way of recap, many of the initial reports to this committee on the community planning program and those various other components, one of the topics addressed was the use of EIR consultants for private development applications. So the city took a position that the planning department should be mandating a list of consultants that private applicants could hire from to draft environmental studies, draft environmental documents that would be used for an environmental impact report. So in response to the city's desire to have essentially a pre-vetted list from which applicants would need to hire, the department released a request for qualifications. I understand we had 33 responses, which is about double what we have traditionally received in this area. A broad effort was made to outreach to as many environmental professionals as possible. The report does provide some detail on what that effort looked like. At this point, all of the statements of qualifications have been reviewed, and the department's administration is in the process of initiating contracts. So the goal is to have essentially this bench list of consultants established by June of this year.
And feedback for that has been positive?
It has been positive.
Okay, great. Also, in your report, you mentioned that the number of general plan amendments has fallen significantly since the adoption of Measure J. How precipitous has this fall been? Has it been the same with zone changes? Have other programs such as density bonus cases or transit-oriented communities made up for the loss of applications? And has this fall in applications resulted in fewer newly entitled units? So are we on track to meet our housing goals based on all of that?
So I don't have numbers to quote as far as which sorts of applications have increased or diminished, though I think that there is an understandable and noticed decrease in general plan amendment applications in particular.
And this is Kevin Keller, City Planning. I think we'd be happy to kind of bring back a more specific report on that. As a general note, we did see a spike in general plan amendment requests prior to the Measure JJJ election. Obviously, people were interested in getting their applications in due to the uncertainty of what would happen. And since then, we have not seen as many. We can bring those numbers back, but I think we're looking at probably under a dozen a year, where we've traditionally been closer to 25 or 50 a year. But if it's okay, we can maybe, at the request of the committee, bring a data report back to actually illustrate those numbers for you.
That'd be great, and to better understand whether we're just getting that, evening out of the blip that happened with the rush, or whether there's a trend here that we need to be aware of and see if it's going to impact ultimately what our housing goals are, because that's the million-dollar question for all of these.
And what we could do, we get a very salient question, Councilmember. It's two things we can bring back, both the what the history going back several years. I think you have to go back about 5 years to really see a trend, at least 5 to 7 years to see a trend. So we can go back to look at both the number of general plan amendments and zone changes, how they've changed, but also the number of dwelling units getting entitled. And so that's going to give you a sense that if general plan amendments and zone changes have gone down, does that mean housing? There's fewer housing, or is this housing being done without the general plan amendment and zone changes? So we can bring both of those, but we'd go back several years so you can actually see a longer trend, because the discussion of the discussion of the ballot initiatives preceded when they actually went to the ballot for the election by a year or so.
Right.
So that's when you started to see the changes was well before them making it to the ballot.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? On the staffing, how are we doing with the planning department staffing as we take up more planning for this?
Things have been very promising on the staffing report. So as I mentioned, all of the management and project manager positions have been filled throughout the program. I believe there's probably a small, less than 5 number of vacancies at the planning assistant, planning associate level. So with where we're staffed up, we are in position to move forward with all of the work programs that have been identified. So there aren't specific plan update efforts that would be hindered for lack of staffing at this time.
And as we move to decentralized services from homeless services from areas that have historically taken them in, such as Skid Row, Venice, and Hollywood, do the community plans present an opportunity to address that, or is it more that we are allowing certain types of density in certain areas that would allow more permanent supportive housing throughout the city? Or it really, can we address it through the community plans or not?
Councilmember, I mean, there's a number of ways that the city can and has addressed that issue. So community plans fundamentally do allow the city to explore options to build housing capacity. That's something that's fundamental to that work program. And that conversation is guided by a number of factors. The department's housing element, as well as the community plans, can bring forward policies and goals that are supportive of providing homeless housing in particular where it's appropriate, and then specific implementation efforts such as the recently adopted permanent supportive housing tools really are what will allow the city to build supportive housing where it needs to go.
And just, Chair Weezar, just a few things that we do still have ongoing housing policy staff that will be are still working on additional policy initiatives outside of the community planning effort to help facilitate those kind of efforts. And as Mr. Weber mentioned, to keep in mind that we have a housing element, but at the same time, the city council has supported, and we're starting the effort to update our general plan comprehensively, the framework element, and actually pretty much almost all of the elements except for the ones that were recently adopted. So it's a comprehensive update of the general plan in the first time in the city's history. And Arthi Varma, principal planner for citywide planning, is heading that up. And so that's a very important place to have that conversation. It's going to take several years to go through that, but we will be having that conversation as part of the general plan update, the big picture general plan update, as well as the community plans, as well as the policy work that we're doing in our housing policy unit.
Great. Thank you very much. Great. So any other questions or comments on this? Seeing none, we'll note and file this, receive and file this report in as much as it was
Mr. Chair?
for informational purposes. Yes.
Could we also, as part of that, formalize the report back that Mr. Bertoni said he'd be able to provide, which was with the report back on the 5-year GPAs, the zone changes, the number of entitlements versus applications? He said resulting from this.
These updates, are they quarterly, or how often are they? Should we bring those report backs beforehand or during the,
We right now we do an annual reporting of it, but I think that we could do probably a quarterly if you'd like. But I think what we could do right now maybe is we can report back to you in terms of just the current status, and at that point in time you may want to let us know as you see the changes and the trends how often you'd like to get updated in the future. We're happy to do what we can do to accommodate the council.
okay. Thank you very much. So we will note, receive and file this, but direct staff to come back with a report backs as requested by Mr. Blumenfield. Okay, great, thank you. Next item number 5.
Item 5, Councilman, this is a report from the Department of Building and Safety in response to a motion of Weezer Martinez relative to safety procedures that can be taken as it relates to the Excite Technology Facility.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Catherine Waskubagaba from Building and Safety. I'm here to provide a summary of the report that was dated April 11th in response to the motion. Understanding the community concern and issues, Building Safety is prepared to take some action. Currently, we are actually enforcing all the best management practices in Cal Green that would reduce the dust and control the dust or suppress the dust. However, with that in mind, with planning department's assistant, we will be identifying and flagging these affected properties, and we will be informing these applicants to make sure that they follow all the guidelines and requirements of the best management practices and Cal Green regulations. We will also ensure and post the site for any of these construction activities, and we'll also make sure that all these enforcements during construction will be met. With that in mind, let me know if you have any further questions.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for your attention to this matter. We put this motion forward because there's been conclusive evidence that the Excite facility, which recycles old batteries, has emitted lead into the air into the neighboring neighborhoods, and it is a facility in the city of Vernon, but it has affected the community of Boyle Heights in the city of Los Angeles. There's currently a undertaking to clean up the soil around the facility to clean it from lead. But one of our concerns was as we demolish buildings to fix them or whatever it may be, that creates dust and pollution with a possibility of lead contamination. So we wanted to raise this issue to ensure that we do not continue to expose people to more lead contamination. Your recommendation is to flag the area for a 1.7 mile radius from the Excite facility that will alert people on ZEMAs and other ways of notification so that extra precautions can be taken. Has that been done, or when can we start that?
Not yet, but we could actually proceed with that.
Okay, and it shouldn't take too long, right? It's just
No, it should not take
okay,
that long.
great. Well, thank you. So I move to, any other questions or comments on this? No? I move to concur with the Department of Building and Safety recommendations and as follows. 1, properties near the Excite facility and their subject lots will be flagged on the Planning Department ZEMA's mapping program with the assistance of the Planning Department to alert the Building and Safety Department permit issued staff to provide the applicants with additional information regarding existing regulations pertaining to worker safety and dust suppression. 2, once the lots are identified in ZEMAs, the Building and Safety Department will create a zoning information file for dust suppression and worker safety that will be included on ZEMAs for each lot. 3, Building and Safety Department will provide pamphlets for on-site distribution and/or on-site posting. 4, the Building and Safety Department will continue to ensure that construction documents for non-residential projects incorporate the appropriate information and ensure that projects in residential districts are not in violation of Municipal Code Section 96.02. So we'll move. Any objections to that? Seeing no objections, so ordered. Thank you very much, and thank you for your report. Item number 7.
Item 7, Councilman, this is a report, rather, from the Planning Commission relative to a draft zone change ordinance as it pertains to the Brookside neighborhood and the Sycamore Square neighborhoods, and this is for the R1 variation zone.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Again, Craig Weber, City Planning staff. The item here is one of our neighborhood conservation rezoning efforts. So by way of background, a series of interim control ordinances were adopted for various neighborhoods throughout the city to establish interim protections while the department developed more fine-tuned and customized single-family zones to suit various conservation needs throughout the city. Those single-family zones were adopted a little over a year ago, and this is one of the remaining neighborhoods identified as part of that overall work program to be rezoned. So the zone that was the zone changes that were approved by the City Planning Commission involved use of the R1 R3 RG zone and the R1 V3 RG zone. So what that means is, number one, that the RG designator would require for garages to be detached and located in the rear in keeping with the built environment of this particular neighborhood. The 3 designator is a more conservative range of floor area that is allowed, and that is intended to keep projects in relative size to the existing built environment. And then those R and V letters indicate where the upper floor bulk of a building would be allowed. So this particular neighborhood is a mix of 1- and 2-story structures, predominantly built in the 1920s and 1930s. And so the department proposed and the commission approved use of the V3 zone in areas that are already predominantly 2-story and where those 2 stories kind of take up the bulk of the house. And use of the R1, R3 zone in parts of the neighborhood that are predominantly single-story, with the goal of preserving that predominantly single-story built environment. That concludes our remarks on the proposed zone change.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, let's go to public comment. Emma Howard, Jan Wierniga, Taylor Luden.
Good afternoon. I'm Emma Howard, Council District 4's new Senior Planning Deputy. It's a pleasure to speak with you today on behalf of the Sycamore and Brookside zone changes. As you know, the council member has been a strong advocate for protecting the character and form of single-family neighborhoods. Interim Control Ordinance number 184381 went into effect on March 17, 2017, in order to allow the neighborhoods of Sycamore Square and Brookside time to consider adoption of the new R1 one-family variation zones. Today's action will help us achieve the goal of zoning that preserves neighborhood character using zoning tailored to individual communities. For the community of Sycamore Square, we support the Planning Department staff's recommendation to change the zone to R1 V3 RG, and note that this decision is supported by the Sycamore Square Neighborhood Association and the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. For the community of Brookside, we support the Planning Department staff recommendation to create the zones R1 V3 RG and R1 R3 RG. This recommendation takes into account the different time periods that the houses in the Brookside area were built, as well as lengthy community input during the Planning Department outreach phase. Our office notes that this split zone is only intended to refer to zoning for the houses and is no way intended to divide the cohesion of the Brookside neighborhood, which remains a united community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jan Waringa. I'm a resident of Brookside and have been for 25 years. And as has been stated previously, it's a neighborhood that's mixed with mostly one-story small cottage-type houses and 50% two-story slightly larger homes. So I do support the planning recommendations to split the zoning between R3 and V3 for Brookside. It seems like a sensible solution to a community that has two different styles of houses. And I hope we will be able to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you. Taylor, Conrad, Starr, Patrick Houlihan, Roseanne Krikorian.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Taylor Loudon. I'm a resident of Brookside, 4618 West 8th Street. I was the board architect of the Miracle Mile North HPOZ for 9 years, and I'd like to speak in support of the Planning Department's recommendation for the R1, R3, and RG for the east side of Rimpau neighborhood of Brookside, and for the west side, the R1, V3. These are very indicative and relevant to the size of the lots and the size of the houses. To the west of the Rimpau, where the V3 seems to be more appropriate, those tend to be two-story structures, and they tend to be on larger lots. The east side of Rimpau, which I think is recognized by the R3 designation, is predominantly smaller lots and one- and two-story mixes. The problematic part is the V3 seems to be additions just not to the front but to the back as well, and that is true for the R3. My time is up, but I'd like to speak in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Conrad Starr, current board president of the Sycamore Square Neighborhood Association, and just reiterating what you already heard from CD4, that we did take the position in support of R1V3 RG for Sycamore Square. It was a unanimous position and it was a compromise position, and nothing has changed there. I understand that this matter is bundled with the Brookside neighborhood, and so as far as Sycamore Square is concerned, we are all for the new designation. Thank you.
Patrick, Roseanne, Matthew Lesher, Catherine Lewis.
Hello, I'm reading a letter for Patrick Houlihan, who had to go to work.
Sir, and what's your name?
My name is Matthew Lesher. I'll be reading my letter later. It has been brought to my attention that the Planning Department and staff are recommending a zone change for Brookside. As a resident of that block that will be directly affected by this decision, I would like to voice my opposition to R1, R3 zone. It is detrimental and a mistake to divide Brookside. I've been a resident for 16 years and invested in 2 homes in the affected blocks. I've reached out to a couple of bankers and real estate experts only to learn that the new zone could potentially devalue my home. So I asked Plum, how is devaluing my home and making my residence Brookside adjacent and dividing up my neighborhood good zoning policy? I expect higher standards and more thoughtful application of zoning. Your very concerned resident, Patrick Houlihan. I'm reading his letter, which I'm happy to submit.
The Sergeant at Arms will get that from you.
Good afternoon. My name is Roseanne Krikorian. I live on the 900 block of Keniston in Brookside. I oppose the proposal, specifically the split zoning plan for Brookside, and I support the variable mass zoning R1 V3 RG for all of Brookside. Whatever supposed aesthetic benefits the R3 option may provide to blocks, which in fact already have a number of two-story houses massed in a variety of ways, they don't justify the limited flexibility, possible additional costs, and loss of backyard space for residents who want a two-story house. I believe the scaling limitations and rear garage requirement of the V3 option take care of any threat to the character of the neighborhood posed by mansionization. There are relatively few neighbors who even know about the proposed split plan because it was certainly not mentioned at any neighborhood meeting held by planning department personnel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Lewis. I am in favor of R1V3 for my home and the entire community of Brookside. I strongly oppose R1, R3, and we should not have segregation in our Brookside community. David Rue's office gave us a specific list of requirements and petitions to fill within a few short days. We were able to canvass 22% of the homes in R3 and almost 22% in favor of having V3 and oppose the R3 zone. Also, 100% of the people that we spoke to were the first time they ever learned and heard about it. Our homes are as similar as Sycamore Square, and why shouldn't we receive the V3 also? I beseech you to please make the entire Brookside community V3 and not to segregate our community. As homeowners, we work hard to pay for our homes and property taxes, and it seems the majority in Brookside is in favor of V3. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Matthew Lesher. And Matthew, I just want to let you know that typically we do not allow for people to step in for other people to read, but you could go ahead today if you ever come back and speak. That's the rule. That's fine. Heather McPherson, Brent Gold, and Sam Kareem. Because you can imagine why you know why we have that rule. You could imagine people coming in.
Why.
Yeah, people come in and say, I got a letter from somebody. I got a letter. We could be here all night with people's letters from. So,
I completely understand.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Matthew Lesher, and I am a Brookside homeowner for 15 years. I am here to state that I am for a united Brookside under V3. It has recently come to my attention that a small group of rogue neighbors have taken it upon themselves to rezone the neighborhood without properly notifying the community. I find it very frustrating that a small community has been making the decisions for over 400 homes, with 200 being adversely affected. The agenda does not reflect the views of the majority of my neighbors. I've spoken to over a dozen neighbors in the past couple of days who also didn't know that the zones were changing, and all are in full support of V3. We bought our homes many years ago, and we see no reason to change the zoning at this time. I'd like to have a full impact report presented to the neighborhood so everyone can understand the effects. Then it should be brought to a vote in the next election. I feel it's very upsetting that someday I plan to leaving this home to my child who will be affected for this. I strongly support V3 for the whole neighborhood of Brookside. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Brent Gold. I've lived in Brookside for over 55 years. For over 2 years, politicians, planners, bureaucrats, and activists have worked tirelessly in bad faith only to deceive and divide a once peaceful, beautiful, eclectic, and unique Brookside. Your pretense and facade of protection, conservation, preservation, community have all proven fraudulent. Our original 60-year zoning and now baseline mansionization ordinance afford us peace, beauty, affluence, individuality, and freedom. Your help has only been hurtful. Your protection has been predatory. Leave us alone.
Thank you. Heather McPherson, Sam Kareem, Roxanne Steiny, Amanda Burton.
Hi, my name is Samantha Kareem. I have a few maps if I could give to the clerk. We've been collecting signatures in the community over 2 days. We collected 22% of the affected zones who support a united V3 variable mass. Many people felt that they weren't consulted. They were waiting to be consulted. We went door to door and educated our community. We used the resources from the community so that we could educate them about what it means. And many people did not agree that a few rogue actors in the community could be making decisions on their behalf. And the irony is not lost on many of our neighbors that the person that's leading the main charge against trying to get the R3 herself has a 2-story house on a maxed out lot, and yet she is deciding what is best for our community in a very paternalistic way, and they didn't really appreciate that. So I vote Brookside to stay united.
Thank you. Next is Roxanne Steiny, Amanda Burton, Randy Haberkamp. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Roxanne Steiny, and I've lived in Brookside for almost 8 years, and I fully support all the work that the planning department put into making the split zone decision. I live in a one-story house. I think that split zoning honors people that live in the one-story cottage-style houses, as well as the V3 honoring those who live in the two-story. And I know that there's been multiple meetings that I've attended. This has been very transparent. We've been discussing this for months and months and months, and I don't know why it's being described as a rogue group that we've just sort of snuck on and made these decisions. This has been open and transparent for months, and again, I fully support the decisions that were made. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amanda Burton, and I've lived in Brookside for 6 years, and I want to agree with Roxanne and say that I support the split zoning for Brookside, and also that, yes, we've been working on this for months. We've had a meeting in December, there was a meeting in February, the neighborhood association has sent out countless emails, and there have been flyers, so I'm a little concerned about why there is a push to make this sort of a surprise rogue movement, because it hasn't been, and it's been very transparent, and I think that the decision to do split zoning is the best decision for the neighborhood, because we do have a mix of one-story and two-story homes, and the R3 will work better for the one-story homes, and the V3 will be great for the two-story homes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Randy Haberkamp, Julian Capata.
Hi, I'm Randy Haberkamp. I've lived in Brookside for 31 years. I've also been involved in preservation efforts for this wonderful city that I love to call home for many years as well. I am not a die-hard, go crazy, save every stick type of preservation. I'm a very practical person. On the other hand, I'm very happy to be standing in this beautiful hall that was saved through council's efforts. I hope that the neighborhood character can be preserved by this, what I see as a compromise issue, and it was done over many, many months. I've attended many meetings. I've had many things in my mailbox, many emails, as has the entire neighborhood. So I think there's some disingenuous information coming to you, and I hope that you vote for the split neighborhood as it has been offered. Thank you.
Thank you. Julian?
I live at 918 South Hudson, and it's in the segregated area that's been approved. And I figure a picture's worth 1,000 words, so I have a short presentation. This does have this is west of Rimpa, and it's in the lower, it's attached to Olympic Boulevard. My house is actually it's my wife's house. This is the green one, and there's 2 stories houses. There's one next to mine and one at the end of the block there. And I'm opposed of the segregated type of motion that's for the Brookside. Brookside has always, I lived there since 1973. So for a $30,000 house, I'm very happy to keep it. And my goal is to put it a second story up, but there's a Swedish company that pushes the second story up, and I can build the bottom one. So I'm opposed to the 2 zones. Thank you. Should I leave the picture here or just take it home?
If you want to leave it for the record, you can give it to the sergeant at arms, and that'll go into the file.
I have a small letter also, then I'll leave it with him.
Thank you. So that concludes our public comment. Are there any questions or comments from the committee members? Okay, so I'd like to move that, given the testimony and the record before us and the request from Council District 4, that we move to approve this item. Any objections? Seeing no objections, so ordered. Thank you. Next item. Items number 9 and 10 we will take together. If you could read those into the record, please, Mr. Mejia.
Yes. Item 9, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Commission. It contains several appeals as it relates to the associated tract map. It's for a demo of a gas station and a single-family home. and a duplex, and the construction of a 5-story mixed-use project with 87 units. And item 10, which is interrelated, also contains a series of appeals, and these are for the underlying land use entitlements, also for the same property address.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Monica Costa with City Planning. On February 8th, 2018, the City Planning Commission approved CPC-2016-1954-CU-MCUP-DB-SPP-SPR, denied the appeals and sustained the Deputy Advisory Agency's decision in approving vesting tentative track map 74169 for the demolition of a gas station, a 1-story single-family residence, and a 1-story duplex, and the construction of a 97,334 square foot 5-story mixed-use project that includes 87 residential units and approximately 6,000 square feet, a ground floor commercial measuring 60 feet in height. Of the 87 units, 20% or 11 units will be set aside as restricted affordable units for very low-income households. The project provides a total of 112 parking spaces located on the ground level and in one subterranean parking level. The applicant subsequently requested that the city consider the project for a statutory exemption pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, Section 21155.1, also known as Senate Bill SB 375. To qualify for a full CEQA exemption as a sustainable communities project, the project must meet the criteria indicated on the checklist provided in the council file. Based on the materials and analysis included in the council file, the city has determined that the 1860 project is a transit priority project that meets all the requirements to be declared a sustainable communities project and is therefore eligible for a full CEQA exemption. In order to determine that a project is statutorily exempt from CEQA pursuant to SB 375, a public hearing for the exemption must be conducted before the City Council. As such, the exemption is before you for your consideration to determine that based on the whole of the administrative record, the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to Public Resources Code Section 21155.1 as a sustainable communities project. In addition, planning recommends a technical modification of the mitigation monitoring program for consistency and numbering purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. So, someone from Council District 13 here? Yep, would you like to speak now or at the end of the public comment? At the end of the public comment, okay. So let's do this. Let's start off with the appellants to the project. And each person has 5 minutes to speak. Each appellant or appeal has 5 minutes to speak. We'll start off with Robert Luchon. And then we'll go to the applicant after that.
Councilman, there was a letter submitted for the record for items 9 and 10 that the appeals were being withdrawn.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm an appellant and my name was not mentioned just then.
Okay, got you. Thank you. 1 second. Okay, that's news to me.
Well,
Adrian Corsani, City Attorney's Office. I believe it was submitted for only one appellant who had filed an appeal on both items. But having said that, since the withdrawal was only today, the committee can take its action on the appeal at the end of the item.
And what appellant was that?
Studio Awesome, LLC.
Okay, we got some, we have about 6 appellants for 9 and 3 appellants for 10. Some of them are the same and they overlap. The public comment will take in the appellants for both items at the same time. So if I call you up, you're speaking on both items for 5 minutes. And so I'll call up one at a time. The first one is Robert Luchon. Are you here? Representing Franklin and Western Neighborhood Association. No? Yes?
I'm from that organization, but I'm not the individual you're talking about.
Okay, what's your name, sir?
Ron Ostrow, O-S-T-R-O-W. I'm one of the members of Franklin and Western.
Okay, I don't have you listed as an appellant here. You were an official appellant and signed the documents? Yeah. Okay, well, keep going, and then I'll figure that out.
Actually, Councilman, he's appellant number 5.
Ronald Ostro,
Oh.
O-S-T-R-O-W.
Never mind.
No, that's a different
No,
one.
that's a different one, sorry.
Okay, can you work that out with the clerk? Clerk, can you figure that out if this individual is an actual appellant of record? Because the difference is, if you're an appellant of record, you have 5 minutes. If you're not, you have 1 minute to speak. So the clerk will figure that out with you.
What was your name again? I don't have you listed as an appellant.
How about you, CLA?
No, there is an appeal filed on behalf of the Franklin and Western Association. That's appeal number 5, but that's not his appeal.
I am one of the members of Franklin and Western Association. I was one of the, we had filed appeals in the original
Gotcha.
case for this.
And did
where
you
our names
hire?
were listed separately.
And did
then
you
we
hire a
filed an
representative?
additional appeal where the name says Franklin and Western on it.
Okay. Did you hire a representative for your organization?
The person you mentioned was a lawyer who has been hired for the organization.
Okay. So I mentioned his name. Nobody else is coming up. If you state you're a member of that organization, you could speak. And if you could state your name again clearly into the microphone for the record, please.
My name is Ron Ostro.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Okay, so, all right, well, gratified to know that I've actually got way more time than I thought I was having, but I won't use it all. As part of the Franklin and Western Neighborhood Association, we previously submitted a request from the Rivkin, a report from the Rivkin Transportation Planning Group supporting our request for a vehicle turnout bay on the western side of this project. This project is predicated on the belief that residents will not be using their own cars. In fact, that's part of the transit plan, part of the density bonus that has been given to this is because they're supposed to be using the transportation corridor. And it's an increase in pickups and drop-offs via ride-share services, which will impede traffic flow and create safety issues, is expected. In addition, trash pickups, which require trash trucks to service the bins on the street, this again is going to cause a major traffic and safety issue if there's no turnout bay. We've been advised that our request for this turnout bay is in conflict with the 2035 mobility plan, specifically because it would reduce the width of the sidewalk, and that further, this request should have been made as part of the original application. Now, as an applicant, I find this catch-22 incredible, because how can an appeal be deemed inappropriate for merely being an appeal when we're supposed to go back in time and prospectively seek out the applicants and ask them to design projects to our specifications? We can only be reactive to what the applicants do. We can't go and read their minds about a project we didn't even know existed until after it was been filed. It's important to note that just south of this proposed project, there are within a block and a half are 2 other turnout bays, and they have been observed critically affecting in a positive way the flow and safety of our residents. And the fact that it's only an 8-foot sidewalk and not a 15 sidewalk has not hampered safety. Trucks have been noticed, again, picking up trash, causing traffic flow to stop people coming around and passing in unsafe manners. It's unquestionable that the thought process behind Mobility 2035 in this area is right-minded, in that it's looking for safety. And at the Planning Commission, one of the commissioners was talking about how they thought that this was really critical. However, what they're not taking into account is weighing the 2 things: the increase of traffic, the impediments to traffic, how this is going to affect pedestrians immediately affected has to be weighed in here. This needs to be included in this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jamie Hall? And can staff move a little bit to the side here? Yeah, so I could see the clock and know how much time we have remaining.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Hall. I'm a planning, land use and environmental attorney with Channel Law Group. I'm here today representing the appellant, the Los Feliz Improvement Association. I just want to first introduce you, if you don't already know, of the Los Feliz Improvement Association. This organization is over 100 years old. One of the oldest neighborhood associations in Los Angeles. And this organization has over 1,000 members and has been advocating on behalf of the community for decades. So an appeal was filed with regard to this project. Well, it wasn't taken lightly. And the reason why an appeal was filed is because this is going to be a project that's the gateway to the community. And the association wants to ensure that it's the best project that it can be. And one driving factor that led to the appeal was compliance with the specific plan, which is effectively known as the SNAP. And what's happening here is multiple requested deviations and variances from the SNAP. And I can just go through a couple of them. Under the SNAP, you would originally get 33 feet, but the applicant is requesting 60 feet. He wants to go from what would be otherwise permitted 55 dwelling units to 87 dwelling units. He wants to request the density by 57.5% from what would otherwise be required. He wants to change the floor to area ratio to 2.78 to 1 over the entire site. He wants 7 lots to be permitted to be joined as opposed to 2 lots. And we could go on and on. The SNAP was the byproduct of negotiations and compromises. It was a multi-year process, and we shouldn't allow deviations from this specific plan to be granted willy-nilly. And unfortunately, we don't think that the city's justifications for deviating from the SNAP and the applicant's justifications are compelling. One of the issues I'll just bring up is the fact that the height that's being requested, even if you applied the density bonus under state law, the applicant is seeking to go above and beyond that by 11 feet. Well, don't forget the fact that there's commercial space on the bottom there, and that he's seeking, I keep saying he, or the LLC is seeking a conditional use beverage permit for that commercial space. So how can you say that the additional height is warranted in this situation when it's something that's a byproduct of the applicant's making? This is a self-imposed hardship. They can design a project that provides much needed affordable housing for the citizens of Los Angeles and still comply with the SNAP to the maximum degree possible. The other issue I want to raise in the time allotted is the fact that this project is not exempt from CEQA as a sustainable communities project. I'm going to point out an error here that I'm putting the city on notice. This is what it says in order to qualify for that exemption, and you have to fit in there perfectly in order to be eligible. The TPP site is not included on any list of facilities and sites compiled pursuant to Government Code Section 65962.5. It is. There is a Valero gas station there. There was a leaking underground gas tank that had to be cleaned up in 1996. That tank is still in the ground. And this is not something I'm saying. It is in the M&D that was prepared by the city. It says in no uncertain terms that property is on the list. Now, the city is trying to say, oh, well, we'll mitigate it, so you don't have to worry about it. But that's not what the law says. The law says you are not eligible for an exemption under this specific statutory exemption if you are on the list in the government code. So I'm urging you not to take action on this today because you will be making a legal error here. And another issue I want to point out is that the analysis with regard to no conflicts to nearby operating industrial uses simply looks at the zoning designation of the properties in the nearby vicinities, not necessarily how they're being utilized. So we have things called non-conforming uses. I'm sure everyone knows what those are. They're all throughout the city. So the city has done no analysis with regard to whether or not there might be light industrial uses such as dry cleaners in the vicinity, and that's not supported by substantial evidence either. I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alex Conrad, George Abrams for Concerned Citizens of Los Feliz. You have 5 minutes total between the two of you.
George Abrahams. The TPP bypassing CEQA will ignores major impacts to the city from traffic conditions in this area. The city traffic for all of the city goes through this area, for the Valley, Glendale, Hollywood, to downtown, and to South LA. And an area-wide EIR studying all cumulative traffic impacts from all projects from Argyle to Western on Franklin Avenue need to be studied. The traffic is so bad that the dash buses, the Hollywood and Beechwood, don't run on time. The streets are a level of service of F. In this one section, there's a 300-seat theater, 6 restaurants, 8 liquor licenses, 1 supermarket, 1 hotel under a variance, and 3 strip malls. And there's also, for one of the restaurants, a valet car park service that crosses Bronson with hundreds of cars. Northbound traffic onto the freeway at Argyle all funnels in from Argyle, Vine, Gower, Bronson, Wilton, and Western. And also there's traffic to Los Feliz on Boulevard to Glendale. And these traffic conditions are not mitigatable through an MND. And so you should deny this project in the interest of the entire city. Alex.
Hi. We hired a geologist, a consultant, who took a look at the earthquake fault that runs along Franklin, and he submitted a letter, which is in the record, which talks about what would happen if there were an earthquake. Not only would the building fall because it's on top of an earthquake fault, an active earthquake fault, but it would also block all of the traffic in a very important corridor. Not only that, there are 2 schools across the street, AFI and a junior high, a Catholic junior high and high school. So it would block all the traffic and make it incredibly difficult for any emergency vehicles to come in. So this would cause utter chaos in the city. The other thing that I want to address is that the way in which the developer asked for the density bonus essentially puts a density bonus on top of a density bonus. It makes the density bonus a conditional use. This is essentially a perversion of the planning process, and it essentially makes it density bonus squared. This is not the way the planning process was intended to work. Also, there needs to be a full EIR done because this was a gas station for 100 years. So in addition to the tanks that Jamie mentioned, we don't know what is going on below the surface, and just mitigating the effects without actually knowing what is going on ahead of time creates an unsafe situation for the tenants, for the community, and for everyone else living in the area. It's a residential neighborhood, and we have to protect the residents. Also, I'm a member of several neighborhood organizations, all of which are incredibly concerned about the SNAP. The SNAP is the specific plan that many, many members of the community came together and designed. It's essentially the city's contract with the neighborhood. We all came together and decided how we wanted this to work out. And now the city is coming in and just spot zoning without going back to the community and saying, okay, we need to revise the plans. this really isn't fair to all of the different members of the community who came together and who gave their time and their thought and their research and their work to create a sustainable plan for our neighborhood. Los Feliz is Los Feliz. We want to maintain our identity. This building sits at what is the entrance to Griffith Park and what is the entrance to Los Feliz. We want it to be a special building that we all have a part in creating, and we want it to be a building that adheres to the agreement that we all came up with, which is called the SNAP. Right now, it completely guts the SNAP. It sets dangerous precedents. That's not what we agreed to, and that is not what we want. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Hunter.
Thank you so much. I'm Susan Hunter. I'm the caseworker for the Hollywood Local for Los Angeles Tenants Union, because these tenants who are living on the property currently need somebody to speak up for them. Today you're going to hear from several of them, as well as the developer. A developer is trying to claim that they don't have tenancy, and they actually do. These tenants have been living on the property for years. They've been paying rent for years. That rent was accepted. They are tenants. There is no question about that. And if Dynamic was truly thinking that they were not tenants, then they would not be working as hard as they are to try and push these tenants off this property by bullying them, intimidating them, threatening to throw their things out. Unfortunately, the developer is not able to give any straight information about their involvement with the tenants because they choose to play games, including pushing the tenants to either take this horrible cash for keys deal or face homelessness, a deal which actually, the way it's written out, should they not pay the tenants would not be able to do anything to recover that money. They would not even be allowed to sue them to recover any relocation money that they would agree to. And of course, after the way that they have treated these tenants, it's clear that Dynamic, has no concern about anybody in the community, let alone the people that are actually living there. And in fact, they even sent a person impersonating a fire marshal to the property to tell the tenants to leave. And even as much as this morning, they had somebody there harassing them, trying to stop the tenants from coming today because they are so scared of the tenants speaking out and telling the truth. And of course, they have gotten some of the tenants to accept a cash for keys deal. In exchange, those tenants now have to come here and speak not only for Dynamic, but against myself and Los Angeles Tenants Union as part of that deal. And I do hope that those people are actually writing on their speaker card that they are paid to be here today. And Dynamic continues to say that they are not involved in the tenants, that is the previous property owner. But if they're not involved, then how come they paid for the hot water and turn it on just to turn it back off again? These tenants have been living without hot water, heat. They've lived with bed bugs. They've had missing smoke detectors, windows barred shut for 3 years because Dynamic and the property owner have been playing games, keeping this property in escrow to avoid the multiple notices to comply coming from city and county agencies. Because nobody wants to be held responsible, but they have no problems going through the process of kicking the tenants out. And in fact, Dynamic was present the day that they tried to force a lockout to happen on all 3 of the properties. If Dynamic's not involved, then why were they trying to encourage the sheriff to commit an illegal lockout on a property that was not listed on the UDs? So they are very much involved in this. I'm here today to argue and say that even though these tenants are eligible for Ellis, Ellis currently as it stands is not enough. Quite frankly, and I'm sure you're aware, the UN has even cited that we are in the grips of a humanitarian crisis in the city of Los Angeles, and it is embarrassing and it is shameful. And one of the causes is Ellis, because Ellis needs to be raised to $75,000 per tenant as a realistic way of dealing with what's going to happen when they lose the housing that they truly can afford at $600 a month and are pushed into a housing market where they have to pay $1,600 a month. At $10,000 under Ellis relocation, that money is gone in 10 months, and then they are homeless again. So what we have to do is come up with some realistic responses. And by raising Ellis amounts to $75,000 per person, that means that they would be able to cover the taxes and be padded as they are forced to move away from city centers, have to pay for a longer commute, more money for their deposit and rent, and be able to actually survive and not fall into a category of homelessness within the next 5 years. Currently, 60% of our newly homeless were housed just 2 years ago. Where are those people coming from but from here? They're not trucking in from other parts of the country. They are being displaced from the housing that they currently have and can afford under things such as Ellis and cash for keys. And it is on the city to do something about it and to send a clear signal that it is not okay for developers like Dynamic to come through and abuse tenants when they stand to make so much money. And there's no reason why the taxpayers should have to pick up the tab when these tenants become homeless, because they are going to stand to make millions of dollars off of this project. Why did the taxpayers have to pay for this twice? So I'm asking you today, please stand up and do something for the tenants. Send a clear message that it's not okay to waste thousands and thousands of tax dollars and man hours in city departments like the housing department, chasing people down to try to get them to comply and just follow the law. Thank you.
Andrea Schuer, S-C-H-O-O-R, representing Michael Collielson, Josia Kessler, and Tim McGinnity. Studio Awesome. What's your name, sir?
Good afternoon. I'm Tim McGinnity, and I represent Studio Awesome.
Okay.
I had provided the council with a copy of our letter notifying the council that we have withdrawn our appeals for items number 9 and 10 on behalf of Studio Awesome.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Bronwyn Von Abel.
Hello, I'm Montague Guild of Montague Guild Company. Bronwyn Von Abley is on our staff. May I comment on the issue?
Sure. What's your name again, sir? You're
Montague Guild.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Bronwyn Von Abley is on Montague Guild Company representative, and I'm Montague Guild of Montague Guild
Okay,
Company.
go right ahead then. Go right ahead.
Thank you. We own the commercial property directly adjacent to the proposed development. We're on Western Avenue, just south of the proposed development, and our property and an apartment house next to us are the only buildings directly touching the property lines of the new development. 87 units in a 55-unit zoning area with a conditional use permit without a zoning change. I know this creates revenues for the city of Los Angeles, and it will also diminish revenues for the city because the city will not be receiving as many revenues from commercial activities next door due to the fact that these commercial activities may be damaged or destroyed. There are 3 shops in the buildings directly adjacent, owned by us for 90 years, and those 3 shops include a voice-over studio that's sensitive to vibration and that could be deeply impacted by the development of removal of tanks, digging of an underground garage, and damage to the sound studio's operations. They will basically have to close down for about 6 months and may lose their entire existence. In addition to that, the other shops in the shopping center will not be able to operate at full staff or at full ability from 10 a.m. or from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. when the construction is to take place. This will decrease the revenues to the city from property taxes, from business taxes and from sales taxes. In addition to that, it creates an image that pushing out small existing shops in favor of illegally structured, non-zoned developments is a pattern that wants to be replayed throughout the area. In addition to the problem of the previous leakage, which we believe may have gone under our property. So we would like you to investigate while this process of removal of the tanks goes on and while the process of building the garage takes place, that the foundations of the buildings next door and the clearing of the contamination under the leaking gas tanks takes place in a manner that meets with California codes. In addition to that, we would like to suggest that you do a further study of the environmental impact of such leakage on the local area and the health hazard it presents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we will go to the applicant, Aaron Green, representative.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, honorable members of the committee. My name is Aaron Green. I am the president of the AFRIAC Consulting Group, and I have the privilege of representing Dynamic Development, the applicant here today. I'm really, and I don't say this very often, I am humbled to be before you with a unanimous recommendation from the City Planning Commission, an exceedingly strong recommendation from city staff, the strong endorsement of over 1,100 of our nearby neighbors, and as well as the support from the City Council office. This has been an exceedingly thorough and diligent process, one that we've engaged in for more than 2 years. This is an important project for a host of reasons, which I don't have time to go into in depth, but I will say underpinning a tremendous amount of this is the fact that our city is suffering from a tremendous housing crisis. This project proposes to take a gas station, a single-family home, and a duplex, and produce 87 units, 87 apartments, including 11 very low-income apartments, as well as some neighborhood-serving retail. Very quickly about my client, founder of Dynamic is a gentleman named Damon Porter, who's here with me today. He's a fourth-generation Angelino. He believes in investing in Los Angeles. He's committed to Los Angeles. He's raised his family here. This is his home, and this is where he chooses to focus his business efforts. Very quickly about the property, this is at the corner of Western and Franklin. As mentioned, my client is not the current owner of the property. They're an escrow of all three sites. It's the very beautiful, scenic 1950s or 1960s Valero gas station. We have a complicated site from a planning perspective. There are 7 different parcels, 5 alone on the gas station, multiple height districts, multiple zones that run across this property. At its base, the project program is 87 units, as I mentioned, with 11 very low-income units. We have about 6,000 square feet of ground floor retail, which we intend to primarily have as a local restaurant. We've got 112 parking spaces, far more than required, and we have more than 12,500 square feet of open space. This project originally started a little bit larger. We started with 96 units and 16 very low-income units. And at initial brush, the majority of folks that we met with in the community, both individual neighbors as well as organizationally, gave us pretty strong support. However, we did get some folks that were concerned with the project. So after we were approved at the hearing officer hearing, we voluntarily delayed our project for 9 months while we worked with the appellants, both the Franklin and Western Residents Association as well as the Los Feliz Improvement Association. We were grateful to work through that process. It was the perfect example of an applicant and neighbors coming together. We're a bit disappointed to see the Los Feliz Improvement Association here today because we did reach an agreement with their president and had a handshake deal. Members of their Planning and Land Use Committee were also part of those negotiations. Our understanding is that there's been a hostile takeover of the organization, and there's a letter in the record speaking to as much from the prior president of the group. As I mentioned, our community outreach and engagement was tremendously robust. Over a period of 9 months, we had a full team go door to door in multiple languages, speaking to our residents north and south of Franklin. This is a very diverse community, and that required a diversity of different types of outreach, engagement, conversations. You know, when I mentioned that there are 1,100 people supporting this project, those aren't people who clicked a like on Facebook or signed a petition online. Those are real people who we had conversations with who said, you know what, I believe that this is the right thing for this site and for this community. We had more than half a dozen meetings with the Los Feliz Improvement Association, another half dozen with the Los Feliz Neighborhood Council. We're here with a breadth and depth of support, as I mentioned, from the Franklin and Western Residents Association, the Hollywood Network Coalition, the Chamber of Commerce, and a host of other groups. I want to speak for more than a couple of moments about some of our appellants. I won't get into all of the issues because the vast majority of these are covered in your staff report, but I am disappointed by some of the information that was relayed to you today. Our neighboring property owner, Mr. Montague, expressed concern up here about the environmental impacts or alleged environmental impacts of this project. What he didn't share with you was that he offered to remove his appeal for $600,000 because he believes that our project will block his billboard. Mrs. Kondraki, again, said that she was concerned about environmental impacts, but she made very clear to us that if we decided to build 7 different buildings on 7 different parcels because there are 7 different pieces of property here, that she would be comfortable with our project. And Mr. Abrams said he thought our project was perfectly wonderful as long as we picked it up and put it somewhere else. About a year ago, during our outreach process, our client, as I mentioned, who is not the property owner, not the property manager, not a tenant on the property, and we were reaching out, we discovered that the single-family home and the duplex were being operated as an illegal boarding house by a gentleman named Alberto Rivera. When we discovered this, our client made an immediate decision that while they are under no legal obligation to do so, that the right moral thing to do would be to try to assist the people who were living there because nobody else had. It was a very tough situation. Rent hadn't been paid in more than a year. In many cases, the utility bills hadn't been paid. At one point, as Ms. Hunter mentioned, we got a call from one of the occupants saying that the power had been turned off. So my client went down to DWP within several hours with a check for $13,000 to turn the power on. When we discovered what was going on, we hired a team to help connect the people who were living there with social services, helping people find new places to live, and providing them with financial support. Ms. Hunter criticized my client, but so far, and you'll see in the record, the only thing that the tenants union has done is criticized my client. They have not actually pursued or provided any assistance to the occupants. And there are letters in the record of former occupants who said that they feel very disappointed that the tenants union has used these occupants to grandstand. It's a very disappointing course of events. By the way, we continue to be willing to work with the small number of people who were part of the original group that are there. The vast majority, more than 80%, have worked with us. As mentioned, this project has an MND that's been certified by the City Planning Commission and staff. It's been appealed here. But we have found, as has staff, that all environmental impacts would be less than significant upon mitigation. Additionally, you heard from staff that this project qualifies as a sustainable communities project. It's determined to be a transit priority project under SB 375 and therefore meets the qualifications for a full CEQA exemption. I don't want to use up all of the time that I have here today, so I would simply ask that, and I am here to answer any questions, as is legal counsel, my client, and anybody else on our project team, and I'm happy to answer them all because we feel proud of what we've done here. We feel very good about this process. This has been a difficult project. There are a lot of projects that you kind of go in, you check the box, you work with the community, it's very straightforward. This is not what this was. This is a complicated project, one that took a lot of time and principled consideration to how to manage it correctly. So I'd simply ask that you join with the City Planning Commission, the city staff, the vast majority of residents, the vast majority of former tenants who used to, subtenants who used to live at the property, and support the project. Deny the appeals, uphold the MND, determine that this project is a sustainable communities exemption merited project. There's one technical correction to the MMP and one technical correction to the EV parking requirement that we've requested as well that you have before you. I'm here for any questions. We really appreciate your consideration today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will continue with public comment. And to the clerk, I have here a parentheses 2 after a name. Does that mean they signed up for 9 and 10 and it's 2 minutes? Is that what that means?
But we're taking it as one item, so it'd be 1 minute.
1 minute, okay, thank you. Okay, all speakers have 1 minute. Armida, Charles Hancock, Lorenzo Brown.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing? Don't even have to answer that, but I'm not so smart as all these people that got up here, probably you guys also. But
what's your name, sir?
Lorenzo Brown.
Okay, great.
I'm a person that actually needs this housing stock to be raised. I'm a person that is living in a situation where I need affordable housing. The only way that you guys can get the housing all over LA to actually come down is to actually be able to supply it. Now, there was by the mayor a couple of days ago a State of the City address. He's going to now plan on building all of these I guess, homeless shelters, you know what I mean? But if we don't have the housing stock for people to transition into after that, then what good does that do? We need you guys to approve this project because it is going to add to the housing stock. And that's going to be for affordable housing and for, market rate housing. I don't think you guys should be turning anything down. I see that this is a sanctuary city, that if our illustrious president ever decides that he's going to start targeting people across the United States, we're going to get people here that are going to be willing to pay but are not going to be able to because there's no housing.
Good.
We need to have that housing, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Lenjangje or Lenganje or Lenjangje Sidham? Avis Bates, Stanway Gook or Gooch? Welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. I've been listening to all the comments that are being made, and I'm impressed with your efforts. I'm impressed with everything that you're trying to do to develop the city and provide housing for the people here in Los Angeles. And I just wanted to say that I'm in support of this project. And it's a positive step. It's a positive gesture, and it's something that we need here in the city of Los Angeles. I think it's necessary that we all work together and we pull our resources together and we work concertedly in resolving these problems. I hear there's a lot that's going on with this project. There are lots of problems and a lot needs to be sorted out, and I'd like to impress upon everybody to work together and to really figure out how to resolve everything that needs to be sorted out to make this a successful project. Thank you.
Thank you. Avis Bates, Stanway Gooch or Gook?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm speaking as a person that has experienced homelessness firsthand. It's not fun. It's not an exciting experience. And as far as I know, this housing is sorely needed because in any area of the city of Los Angeles, which is a great and diverse city, one thing that I always notice is that there is homelessness in every part of the city. So in that respect, I know as a person that travels throughout the city that this project is greatly needed to help a number of people that have no place else to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Stanway? Christian Michaels? William Copeland?
Hello and good evening. My name is Stanway Lee Gooch, originally from Memphis, Tennessee. And I've been living here in Los Angeles for 14 years. I'm actually a part of a program in which I'm developing personally with a smaller group of professionals for an environmental wellness and health technology program. And I support this project for a number of reasons. For one, there is a city development that is actually currently taking place. And I highly support this particular project specifically for the environmental reasons and to actually implement something that would actually cater to the environment, to the community, and as well as the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Christian Michaels, William Copeland.
Good afternoon, committee. Just wanted to make a couple comments. First of all, I heard about this project and I thought it was a great opportunity to start providing housing for people that are obviously enormously homeless in this city. The city has grown exponentially in numbers in the last couple of years, but it has not kept up with its housing projects or opportunity for people to have affordable, equitable housing. And I think that's the priority of the city. Otherwise, there are going to be some serious infrastructure problems occurring both with traffic and lifestyle issues and also taxation issues. So with that said, I'm here on behalf of supporting the project and also with the intention and slight agenda to meet the developers and provide and educate them about the systems that I provide, which are eco and wellness, sustainable building materials and construction materials, which will allow the building to look brand new for years and serve the community both in an environmental way and provide safe and reasonable housing. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please. And then we have V. Weathersby, Steve Butler, Latrice Morris.
My name is William Anthony Copeland, and I am in support of the 1860s project. A reasoning man does not speak except on occasion, and people dedicated to helping other people will always be considered a special occasion. Pretty much that's it for me, except to support it in any way that I can. We are also taking occupancy of about 60,000 square feet in the 900 Wilshire building with Cushman & Wakefield, intending to do very special things here downtown, including creating an LA Broadway, like, of course, New York, utilizing about 8 blocks of Broadway. So we intend to be a voice in the improvement of this city in many, many ways. Thank you.
Thank you. B. Weathersby?
My name's Armida.
What's your name?
Armida Monreal.
Oh, I called you earlier, right?
Yes.
Okay, go right ahead.
I'm in support of the project. You know, I'm all for affordable housing. You know, I grew up in East Los, East LA.
Where
and,
about?
You know, East LA.
Unincorporated East LA or city, Bow Heights?
Boyle Heights.
Bow Heights, okay.
And we've talked before at the parade.
I remember.
Yeah, and you know, I'm all for it. I live in downtown Skid Row, and then I'm in a project. And these people, they need it. You know, I see it every day, and we get judged by where we live, and I don't think it's right. You know, I stood up in line last week, and I wasn't served because of the way I was dressed. Why? Because I'm dressing decent. Do I have to look dirty? Do I have to look homeless? You know, it might not have nothing to do with this, but I think it has a lot to do with this. I think it covers more than just what's under the ground and these whatever else they're complaining about. This is my opinion. I'm sorry. Okay, I think it covers a lot more than that. I think there's other reasons why they don't want this project, and that's just my opinion. Okay? And, you know, I'm 100% in support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. V. Weathersby, Steve Butler, Latrice Morris.
I support the 1860 bill housing. Yeah, I just support the bill.
Thank you very much. What's your name, sir?
Steve Butler. Steve Butler.
Steve Butler. Okay, thank you, Steve. Next, V. Or Latrice.
Good
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Leatrice Morris. On behalf of a lot of us who live in SROs, this is an excellent, excellent thing, 1860. And I wanted to address the fact that it says 86 new places, new apartments, 11 of which will be made for families of low income. I live on Skid Row. I lost my house through fraud. One day I was living in Lamert Park. The next day I was living in a public park. And I ended up on Skid Row. I wanted to add that this is an excellent thing to do. There are many vacant buildings up and down 5th. I live on 5th Street. Would you please also consider turning some of those into places where the homeless are? Because they're all up and down where we live, and having lived in a $500,000 house in a park, I can't speak. Understand? Thank you.
Martez Gilmore. Martez Gilmore, Catherine Mason, and Maria Arcia.
Good afternoon, all. I'm Martez Gilmore. Want to get straight to the point. Building this housing is one thing for people who live in the area that want to fight against it. Maybe it's their site they want to get rid of, or they don't want to go against those purposes. Now, we really think humane, then we would want to actually put more people that don't have housing or can't afford a certain amount of housing. You would want to put them in housing. If not, you flood your area with something that you really don't want. So if you allow yourself to do that, and then you look at your neighborhood and you say, what happened now? So for all those that are against building affordable housing or building this particular housing, I think it's completely wrong. I think that it should be here. It does help a lot of people overall, and it does help the area. People do not want to integrate and mingle with each other, and that's why we have this separation. It's about levels for a lot of people, and everyone knows this. This is what our society has come to. We don't want certain people in our area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Mason, and I'm a longtime, actually born and raised in Los Angeles here, in East Hollywood and West Hollywood area. And I'm here today to share my support for this project. I'm a firm believer in increasing the housing options that we have here in Los Angeles, because so many people are displaced and have to travel from so far away just to come and work in our city. So I'm here to say my support today for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica Chagoyon, Ivania Obandio. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Hector Barbosa, and I'm here to help translate these ladies.
Sure, go right ahead.
Buenas tardes, soy Mónica Chagoyán. Estoy aquí para apoyar a las personas de bajos recursos, para los apoyen a agarrar departamentos de bajos recursos. Muchísimas gracias.
She's here to support people, who have low income, to better options in housing. Okay, she just believes in, getting all the support that one can get, for people, who need low housing, cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Ivania Obandio, Michelle Eatman.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Ivania Obando. Estoy aquí para apoyar para los proyectos y edificios de bajo recurso para las familias que tenemos de bajo recurso. Muchísimas gracias. Buenas tardes.
Gracias.
She's here also to support, any project that would help the people, with low-cost housing.
Michelle Eatman, Denise Brown, Roger Adams.
Good morning. How are you guys doing today? Bear with me. I'm slightly hyperventilating, but I feel like I have things I have to say. I am Michelle Eatman. I am a member of this community. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. I'm a mother of 3. It's important to me as a member of the community that this project happen. I have friends who struggle, work hard to live where they live, and they struggle. There are people I know who live in 3, 4, 5 people in a studio apartment in this community just so they can have somewhere to sleep at night. There are people who I know that hop around from apartment to apartment just begging for a couch because they just want to live somewhere that they can afford. This project for me is a way for me to bring together the people who have and the ones who need the assistance to live. For me as a mother, I am thankful for this project so that there is, the sidewalks are a lot wider, and I guess this is much more family and community friendly, something that we really do need here. And also for people who have animals, I know that a lot of people in my neighborhood, they struggle. There's nowhere for their animals to go.
Thank you. Your time is up, ma'am.
Outdoors. Essentially, this project is important for people, real people in the community, and I really hope you guys take that into consideration.
Great. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Roger Adams, lived in Southern California for 40 years. I'm very much for this project. I'm for any good housing project that comes into LA. We know we're in need of housing. When I was in high school, the average wage was $4 or $5 an hour. You could get an apartment for a reasonable rate. The rule of thumb was 1 week's pay for 1 month's rent. That no longer exists now. When I was in high school, you could get a house in Beverly Hills for $80,000. Now I don't even want to know what the cost of housing is because it's absolutely ridiculous. So it's just wonderful that we can get good quality housing in LA, and it's even more, it's even better if we can get housing in there for people who can't normally afford it. I thank you very much, and I hope that you vote for this project, even with all the minutia that people are throwing at you.
Thank you. Louise Tishanga, Jim Doon. Welcome.
My name is Denise Brown, and I hope that you'll support this project. On all of our money, it says, "In God we trust," but I think that God wouldn't be too happy with us right now if we continue to usurp all the things on earth for only the rich and not take care of the poor.
Louise Tachanga, Jim Doon, Kiazi Halpern.
Yes, my name is Luis Pacheco, and I support this project because I know it will help disabled people more comfortable, with places they need to go, market, all the places that they need to go. And so I support this project, and you should also. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Doon, Kiazi Halpern, Javier Mulero, Zvi Jari, Hector Barbosa.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Yeah, my name is Luis Changa. Yeah, I live on low income.
just thank you guys.
Can you speak into the microphone, please? Can you step forward and speak into the microphone? Yes. Thank you.
My name is Luis Changa. Yes, I live on a low-income housing. I just want to please you guys to have more housing and more parking. Just try to take those homeless in the street. Just give them something to, just give them some place where they can lay their head. That's the way where I can worry about it. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. What's your name?
Yes, James Dunn.
Welcome.
Thank you. Los Angeles is in need of more affordable homes for our community. And this sustainable project will address that need for all of the people in our community. Please approve this project. Thank you.
My name is Tzvi Jari.
What's your, okay, got it. Thank you.
The one thing, I've been living in this town for 26 years. The one thing that I always hear from tenants is the traffic, traffic, traffic. That game never changed, but housing is in short supply. Also, if you notice the age of the people who are against the project as opposed to the people who are for the project, it can tell you that the neighborhood is just trying to protect itself. They're not thinking about the rest of the people. It's close to the subway for the transportation so people can go to work. They're just thinking about their own homes, their own property value. And I think that we should look at it as a much larger issue with housing for the whole city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Hector Barbosa. I was a resident on Franklin and Gramercy for some years, and I still go to that area every single week since a lot of my friends live right between Western and Gower on Franklin. And let me tell you, in discussing this over the past several months, they truly believe that there's an undercurrent of prejudice that is taking place in going against this project. First of all, the kind of people that they think they're going to get to live there, you know, and also the parking problem, they feel that sincerely they are having more problems since living in the old buildings that didn't quite, you know, were built with the required number of parking spaces for, you know, today's time has been a problem with them, where it won't be with the construction of this new building. The overall, you know, feeling for all of us is that we need to really concentrate on really who are the people that are against this project, the reasons why, and who really is going to benefit from the construction of a project like this, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kiazi Halpern. I've been here for 7 months. I think that Los Angeles is a very beautiful city with a terrible, terrible problem, which is its housing crisis. I think that this project will actually alleviate some of the issues, and I think on a humanitarian level, like if you have the power to help your fellow man, why not, you know? I think it's a really great thing that could be done, and the times they are a-changin', in the words of Bob Dylan. And I think that you guys can be proactive in being part of that change because it will happen. And I think it's important to be on the right side of history. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Claudia Tomasino, Howard Chapnick, Ara Kauchatorian. Welcome. What's your name, sir?
Hi, my name is Javier Mulero. I lived in Hollywood for 19 years. I've lived in West Hollywood for 11 years, 11 and a half. I've seen all the changes, the rent changes, the rise on the rents. I want to talk about the height and the density of the project. I'm all for the project, the 1860 Northwestern Avenue project. The height and density are appropriate, and they do fit with the community standards and rules. I want to talk also about the fact that the 1860 project is going to provide significantly more parking than is required by the code. It's going to provide nearly double the parking required by the code. It's also very close to, within walking distance of the subway on Western and Hollywood Boulevard. I know that area. I lived on Kingsley. I lived on Harvard. That's a great place for that building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Claudia Badek Damascene. I hope that the City Council supports this environmental-friendly, humanitarian, and animal-friendly building, because I was one of the tenants bordering the gas station, and this is a very dangerous area. And there was a lot of drug dealing going on in both of the houses as well as the gas station. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, council members. My name is Howard Chapnick. I'm a scientist without an education. My science is telekinetics. Control the matter in the room right now. We're back on the cameras, the tapes. Paranormal activities happening within the city. I understand the impact of city and business. I was a former proprietor of a business, Franklin and Company, down the street from this project. The impact of the project, build structures to the environment, of economics that can support it. It doesn't have impact. It has impact to something that was already building around it. So it's a positive project. More so than this, I'm telling you, I'm sitting right here. You should get my information later here, whenever, soon. Discover green energy here. The movement of paranormal activity is identification of green energy. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you. Joanne Howard, Sabrina Diaz, Andrea Sadusky. Welcome, sir.
Hello, my name is Charles Hancock, and I do support the 1860 because I stay on 5th Street between Crocker and Town Street, and either four directions I go to the store, I have to dodge poop, human feces, urine, needles, and there's no way I can get to either store without always smelling this stench down here on Skid Row. Now, LA is a beautiful city, it definitely is, but the 1860, that'll be a wonderful thing to do for us. And I just thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Joan Howard. I do outreach for Food on Foot in Hollywood. Our slogan is, we turn your tax burdens into taxpayers. So I'm here to make a plea for the functional who are on the street. Because there are a lot of very good functional people who want to work full-time jobs, but minimum wage will not cut it. They just won't. And you're looking at a tsunami. For the people who object to this project and every other project, for the builders who will not put minimum or moderate affordable housing in their buildings, you don't know what you're facing. You're facing a plague. Because I see it every day. I go out all over the place with people. These are good people. One homeless guy said, "Joan, tell them to stop building out and start building up."
Thank you.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Very slowly, or very fast.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just want you to know that you're looking at the face of homelessness. I was homeless in my car with my mother. She had dementia. I had 3 dogs. I just recovered from cancer, and I had no immune system. I could barely stand up. I picked up after my dogs. I was very careful about my trash.
Ma'am, 2 things. One, you need to speak this way, speak into the microphone.
Oh,
and 2,
sorry.
That's more than one thing.
Okay.
So,
But I just wanted you to know that the functional are out there,
Great.
and they need housing too.
great. Thank you very much. Lori Goldman, no, Laurent Gubler, Lori Goldman, Yee.
Hi, good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. I am a real estate agent in Los Angeles, and I'm one of the very real 1,100 people that Aaron spoke of earlier. And I felt it important enough to come to voice my support of this project, to take time away from my clients and my business. The need for affordable housing in the city is real, it's critical. I have clients every day who are more than functioning and can barely afford, a decent place to live in this city. And also, a project like this keeps people from leaving Los Angeles. I work with relocation clients all the time that are moving from other states, other countries, and a neighborhood like this that already has so much vibrancy to improve the walkability and keep, LA being a world-class city, I think is important. So I hope that you do the right thing and move this project through. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Laurent Gubler, Yeneth Zanes Solis.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. My name is Yeneth Zanes Solis. I am here on behalf of Hollywood Community Housing Corporation. We are a nonprofit affordable housing organization that has been serving the Hollywood and Greater Los Angeles community for more than 25 years. Currently, we own over 800 units of affordable housing across multiple complexes, including our 56-unit apartment complex on 1516 Western Avenue. For families and individuals that are low income, have experienced homelessness, and have special needs. We are here today to lend our support to the proposed 87-unit mixed-use development on Western and Franklin, which will include 11 units of affordable housing. We believe that the severity of the housing crisis requires strong efforts on behalf of local governments as well as private and nonprofit developers to build more housing that meets the demand of the city's diverse income population. The proposed mixed-use project will not only provide 87 units of much-needed housing, but it's an example of the types of developments that we need in the city: high-density, mixed-use, and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. Naila Arslalian, Ken Morris, Whitney Ann Jenkins.
Hello, my name is Ken Morris. I wanted to speak out in favor of this project. Per the mayor's office, LA needs 328,000 or more housing units to meet the demand. We're talking about a building that is 2 blocks from the metro, 1 block from the American Film Institute. There's another metro that's just a mile walk away. Los Feliz has a population of about 36,000 people. The median income is 50,000, with 75% of those people renters. So to all of you who say that this is out of character for the neighborhood, you are out of character for the neighborhood. The neighborhood is changing. It is growing younger. We need places to live. All of these people who get to live in single-family homes up in Ivory Towers, that's great. I would love to live with you guys if you're renting out the building. But as such, the rest of us are stuck in apartments. So we need places to live. We need it to be close to transit. I took the metro here. How many people took the metro here? If I was living in this building, I could walk. So I'm just advocating for this building. Please, please, please. We need places to live.
Josh Steichman, Roxanne Spite,
Hi, my name is Josh Steichman. I've lived in Los Feliz for about 7 years now. I am a member of the Planning and Land Use Committee on the Neighborhood Council, though I'm not on the Neighborhood Council itself. And I'm here to speak strongly in favor of this development. We need more housing. We need more developments like this. We need more affordable housing. And one of the shames of this process is that affordable housing got cut out of this building's plans in order to meet the trapped in amber demands of some of the neighbors. That's a shame, but I'm hoping that you vote for this project and that the next time one of these comes up, you vote for that one as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Noel Weiss, Andy Bland, Darius Lee.
Good afternoon. My name is Roxanne Spate, Commissioner, Committee. Thank you for your time. I am in support
Sorry,
of this
what's your name,
project.
ma'am?
My name is Roxanne Spate.
Okay, thank you.
I'm in support of this project. You've heard several times about the 1,100 folks. Here are the petitions that I'd like to submit to you, the names. I also would like to say this is a very complex situation. There's been so many different things that I have heard, that you have heard, so taking the time to hear all of this, taking the time to be respectful and responsible to the community at large, but particularly to the neighbors. So coming to the table multiple times to see how this project could benefit the majority of people, that's what I hear more than anything. I don't think there's going to be a perfect solution where everyone is going to be happy and everyone is going to applaud, but for the most part, I think just the collaboration that has been attempted has been awesome. And if we've had gas tanks underneath for 100 years, I don't think we should let them stay there without checking to see what's happening. So thank you for your time.
I guess we're on the against side now. Noel Weiss, council members. I'm here basically on behalf of myself. I think it's important, by the way, since we have two items, that we get a minute for each item. That's just procedural due process issue. More importantly, in listening to the comments of the developer or the person in escrow, we don't know how long that escrow is, there hasn't been adequate provision for the tenants. Mr. Weezar and I, we go way back to the relocation days. Mr. Weezar was critical in protecting the tenants of the city at that point in time. I want to renew that thrust and that excitement and that incentive. There are tenants on this building right now that are basically going to get screwed under the current conditions as they exist that need to be modified under that VTT. I think that this developer, well, along with the leadership of Councilman O'Farrell, can put together a tenant relocation package that basically takes account of these tenants' condition and situation, incorporate those relocation provisions in the CEQA workup, as we did with Lincoln Place and other developments, and basically solve the problem instead of dividing people in a way that is counterproductive to the true goal, which is to provide a greater degree of affordable housing. This is very expensive affordable housing, councilmen, and you all know it. There are ways to do it. We need to do it. This project, as currently constituted, is not the way. As far as the current tenants are concerned, thank you very much.
Thank you. Robert Besser. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Darius Lee, and I currently reside at 5446 Franklin Avenue. I have 4 jobs, and I work very hard to make it from Hollywood, from Flint, Michigan. I've been homeless in LA before, and whatever happens throughout this very stressful process in our lives, I hope and pray it doesn't leave me or any of my housemates in a position to become homeless again after vacating. I think it's safe to say we deserve to be treated fairly after living in the situation we are forced to live in currently. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Ulysses Hamilton? No, not here. Michael Ross, Ruben Valdez, Donald Rhine. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Ross. I'm a resident at the property at issue. You have heard and will hear from other tenants about how this has this proposed project, as it stands, has adversely affected their lives. I would underscore their personal stories with my own. It's shown to me how out of control the housing situation in Los Angeles has become. It seriously undermined my confidence in the ability, or perhaps the willingness, of city government to take a stand against developers who pick and choose which laws to follow and which laws to ignore. It's made me question how secure I might feel how I might feel wherever I lay my head in this city. And it's made me ask, what city power speaks for the powerless? I hope your decisions today will make a difference in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robert Besser. I lived at 5448 Franklin Avenue, and I'm asking you guys not to approve this project until they help us relocate. This project made me homeless. As in the owner, Abdel Malak and Dynamic, they both bailed out on us. They left us there just sitting dead in the water. So please don't approve this project until they help us relocate. Thank you.
Thank you. Donald Rind, Sean Giebitz, Craig Bullock, Mardewu Tompol.
Hi, my name is Ruben Valdez. I just want to ask a rhetorical question. If Dynamic had and their attorneys' representatives resolved the heating problem for the duplex, how come I have not had hot water for over 6 months? I know we need affordable housing here in Los Angeles, but I don't believe that this developer are the ones to be able to create that happening. They can't even help the people that are currently there now. I've been homeless before. You know, that's about it. I'm not for this project.
Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Don Ryan, and I am a neighbor in the area. I've lived there for many years. I'm also a founding member of the Los Angeles Community Health Project, which provides health services for the homeless. A couple things I want to respond to, comments here. First of all, I'm really thrilled by the possibility that Dynamic Development is in favor of housing for the homeless. I would support the turning of this 87 unit development into entirely affordable housing. That would be fantastic. I think it should be clear that when the 11 units that are listed as very low income, those 11 units, very low income means tenants have to make between $19,000 and $31,000 a year. None of the current tenants would qualify for that because they don't make the $31,000. Developers rarely occupy people who are making below $31,000 at that income rate. Also, if you have any prior infractions or bad credit, you do not qualify for the housing.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Sean Gibbets. I'm a former tenant at 5048 Franklin Avenue. So far, the situation has been pretty precarious as we've fallen into a situation after we were evicted. And see, the issue has absolutely nothing to do with the development at hand. That was a separate issue that was brought to us by Al Riviera and Adley Abdemalak, who had an illegal operation running previously. And that's a completely separate case. Now, as for this situation, the development as it stands, I do believe that we do need to modernize and we need to create more housing. However, through cooperation between Dynamic and the city, we've been doing our best to create something that was fair for everyone involved, and we've even consulted independent lawyers who all concurred that what we all agreed upon was fair. And I really appreciate what everybody involved has done, the city, Dynamic, and our lawyers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, hi. Hello, my name is Martaway Tompo, and I was one of the former tenants of 5448 Franklin Avenue. Now, this situation is drastically really sad and unfortunate. Dynamic was misled by Mr. Adley Abdemalak. Now, myself and all the tenants who have spoken never signed a contractual agreement between Dynamic and ourselves for any lease, no management, nothing. Dynamic actually took upon themselves to offer not only a fair but generous relocation offer that unfortunately my friends all rejected because they wanted more money. And that's really, really, really sad and unfortunate that they would try to extort an organization that's done nothing but help us in a very drastic time when we were evicted. LATU did not step up and house us. In fact, Susan Hunter came to me and said, when she watched us get evicted, and said, do you guys have somewhere to stay? It was Austin that was driving back and forth with his own gas, his own time, ensuring that we would be able to get a fair and reasonable offer. They even doubled it. So please, trust the truth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andy Bland. You guys called me, but I was unavailable. I currently live at the address 5448 and was evicted. Dynamic had originally reached out to us, and they wanted to help us, but at the same time, they wanted us to sign over our rights that said we, in fact, were subtenants somewhere that we had lived for multiple years in an illegal boarding house, taken advantage of by the previous owner and landlord. I never felt that Dynamic ever explained any of the situation to me. These terms, rent stabilization, Elias Act, I didn't know any of this stuff. And it was Susan from the tenants union who actually informed us and has helped us going forward. So I'm against the project in its current state because I feel like they haven't addressed this issue. So thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker, Anabela Mazariegos. And then we will hear from a representative from Council District 13.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Anabela Mazariegos. I'm from Los Angeles Tenant Union, Boulevard Vecinos Unidos, y Occupy Los Angeles. Housing is a human right. I am in favor of housing, any housing development that is for the people, but I am opposed of the 20% affordable housing requirement and 80% regular market. It's not fair for the people who works, who doesn't make enough money. You elected officials can change that loophole because it should be requirement 100% affordable housing, not 20%. And somebody else made a point that if people don't make 20,000, the requirements. In Boyle Heights, there was a situation, it was a requirement 13,000. People who are on SSI, they don't even make 11,000 a year. So it's not fair when you make those requirements for the people who cannot afford. Housing is a human right. Please, 100% housing for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we go on, ma'am, you're standing, did I call your name or? I'm sorry, can you come up and speak in the?
Yes, I believe so. My name is Whitney Ann Jenkins. I believe you called me.
Yes, I did a while back. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
But you weren't available either at the time, no? I'm sorry, the previous speaker said that. Go right ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon. I am Whitney Ann Jenkins, a local resident of Los Feliz. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. These 87 homes will be within walking distance of the Hollywood Western subway line, which is where density should be developed. Specifically, this project is located on the existing commercial corridor of Western Avenue, which is where such infill development is best located to preserve adjacent single-family neighborhoods. These 87 homes will transform a gas station, an automobile-oriented use with a high impact on traffic, into a mixed-use development, a pedestrian-focused development that provides additional retail opportunities for the neighborhood. The project provides subterranean and ground floor parking wrapped in retail, increasing eyes on the street and reducing the visual impact of blank walls along Franklin and Western Avenues. Please deny the appeals and support this project moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will hear from the representative from Council District 13. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Craig Bullock, and I'm with Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell's office. The council member is in support of redeveloping this underutilized site with a mixed-use development consisting of commercial space and 87 units of housing, including 11 with affordable. This location is within 1/3 of a mile of the Hollywood and Western Station, and putting density close to transit is smart planning. Since learning of the housing conditions at the February 8th City Planning Commission meeting, I have been in communication with the Developer Dynamic Development, the Housing, Community, and Investment Department. This is an unfortunate situation, is the result of an unscrupulous actions by an individual not associated with the developer. I discovered that the housing conditions are a result of the property being operated as an illegal boarding house. The building was simply not designed or constructed to house the number of individuals that have occupied the space. The property owner leased the space to an individual, Mr. Alberto Rivera, who subsequently leased it unwittingly to other people. Though under no legal obligation, Dynamic has incurred more than $60,000 to date in expenses for utilities, repairs, and relocation assistance, with the encouragement of this office. Despite the order of eviction being issued on March 5th, Dynamic continued to offer assistance to these tenants as recently as last Friday. Though this matter is between two private parties, Councilmember O'Farrell hopes that the remaining occupants and Dynamic can work out an arrangement to sufficiently resolve this issue. We ask that you deny the appeal and approve the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Thank you. So to clarify, either staff or to the applicant or to CD13, the people who were staying there, legally, the applicant was not required to provide them some compensation, but they did nonetheless. And correct? I just want to clarify that. A number of people said that. So if somebody could just clarify that for the record. And Mr. Green, before you go on, earlier you said that the applicant is fourth generation. Where does that take us back? 1600, 1700?
Damon?
Where?
He's not that old.
Well, okay, I just don't. To me, fourth generation, I'm like, whoa, you know, it came with the I don't know, maybe they're here.
Horse and buggy.
Horse and buggy or
Horse and
Native
buggy.
Americans, I don't know. So, okay, thank you.
Mr.
It
Chair,
sounds
Honorable-
nice, though. Fourth generation sounds.
Aaron Green, Afria Consulting. So, as our council has advised us, the way that tenant occupancy, relocation, things like that of this nature work is that if somebody is an occupant on a lease of a property, that party is entitled to relocation under certain circumstances. In this particular case, there is only one party who is on any lease for any of these properties, Mr. Alberto Rivera. That gentleman is, we have not been able to locate him. Rent has not been paid on this property, either of the units, in more than 1 year. If there was any relocation that was to be designated, it would be on a per unit basis, not on a per individual basis. Mr. Alberto, because of his failure to pay rent and for other reasons, has been evicted from the property. That has resulted in the parties who he invited into the property and had sublet it to also be asked to leave the property after a failure to pay rent for an extended period of time.
So, I'm sorry.
Mr. Harris-Dawson?
Yeah, I'm asking you this because we have a couple situations like this in our district.
Yes, sir.
What you just laid out, is that the opinion of council, or has one of the occupants actually taken it to court and tested that out?
That is the opinion of the city, HCID, as well as the opinion of our council. It's what we've been advised by the city.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no. Is there anybody here from HCID?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And with respect to the environmental, there was some testimony about a former oil tank or something there, and we're only requiring. What type of environmental review are we requiring? And go ahead.
An MND was adopted by the City Planning Commission. Also, the applicant requests a statutory categorical exemption for the Sustainable Communities Project.
How old is that oil? Is it an oil tank? What was it?
It's an underground storage tank. The site was formerly a gas station.
So there's no phase 2, meaning there's no additional testing to be done.
No, the site has been determined to be closed per GeoTracker since 1996. So it's not listed as active.
It's not listed as active. Okay. The applicant, I've seen some other cases like this in my district, and the applicant has voluntarily agreed to do a phase 2 just to do additional testing. It's not a full environmental, but I just don't know how severe or how long these things have been there. Have there been any issues? Yes, can the applicant representative, you want to testify to that?
Jim Arnone of Latham and Watkins. I represent the applicant here. So over a quarter of a century ago, when all of the underground storage tanks in the state were in the process of being upgraded, and we know this from historical information, of course my client wasn't involved, the tank was upgraded, and at that time they were found to be leaking, as almost all were. At that time, the Regional Water Quality Control Board oversaw a cleanup, and the tanks were all replaced with the new modern tanks that also have leak detection systems, which have been required in this state for about 25 years now. So when that was done, they did the remediation. The regional board oversaw it. The regional board decided 22 years ago that it was completely remediated, and they closed the file. That's the only thing that exists. Now, going forward, so that's been addressed, and the current tanks are the modern tanks with leak detections that they're double-walled and they have leak detection. Now, when everything is removed, you're still required to do a soil test, and the regional board requires you to remediate anything that is found, though nothing is expected.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, and I think in our case, I've seen some cases in the east side where some of those tanks have not been touched for some time, and we still do an M&D, which I don't understand why we would just do an M&D, but the applicant agrees to do phase 2. In this instance, it seems like they've had some cleanup already, as say as little as 22 years ago, but that's modern for these purposes. Any other questions or comments? Okay, given the testimony and the suggestion by Council District 13 to deny the appeals, we will move to deny the appeals and sustain the determination of the City Planning Commission regarding Council File numbers 18-0193 and 18-0193-S1, with the technical modifications to the mitigation monitoring program set forth in the memo from planning dated April 12, 2018, and the change to the electric vehicle parking conditions set forth in attachment A to the letter from Latham and Watkins dated April 16, 2018. And we further move to determine, based on the whole of the administrative record, that the project is exempt from SEQA pursuant to Public Resources Code section 2155.1 as a sustainable communities project. Any objections to that motion? Seeing none, so ordered. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item number 11, please.
Item 11, Councilman, this is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission relative to the inclusion of the Swabble House located at 4217, 4221 Agnes Avenue in CD2 as a historic cultural monument.
Okay. Staff here on this item? Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Weezar and members of the committee. My name is Melissa Jones. I'm with the Department of City Planning's Office of Historic Resources. Before you today is the Cultural Heritage Commission's recommendation to declare the Zweibel House an historic culture monument. This was initiated by Councilmember Krikorian. The Commission found that the property successfully meets 2 of the Cultural Heritage Commission criteria. One as an example of American Colonial Revival residential architecture in Studio City, and also as a highly intact work by noted Los Angeles-based architectural designers Arthur and Nina Zweibel. There is a request from the proponents of the nomination to change the name of the proposed monument to the Albert R. Bell Residence. Staff concurs with this proposed name change. I'm here to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to public comment on this item. Caro. We wish to speak after public comment? Okay. Natasha Johns Vogt, Daryl Fetty, Davina Limonik. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Natasha Jansvogt. May I give this to the Sergeant in Arms to...
Yes, please. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. We have a lot to say, but I know our time is short, so I would like, for my part, to underscore the contribution, the value of the contribution of Nina Zwiebel to this project. I'm an interior designer trained in interior architecture at UCLA, and I have a lot of interest and a passion for architecture in this city and feel privileged to have that on our street represented. From my knowledge of architecture in Los Angeles, I can say that I can't point to many women that have made a valuable contribution. And so for that reason alone, I would like to say that the legacy of Nina Zwiebel should be honored, and I hope you will support the preservation of this house. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name's Daryl Fetty. I have to say, listening to all the problems of the homeless kind of puts in perspective the fact that this developer bought this house which should be preserved. He wants to tear it down and build a mega mansion for a single family dwelling. It's ridiculous. Okay, quickly, I'm a longtime resident of the 4233 Agnes Avenue, which is of the Three Sister Houses. It's a beautiful neighborhood. I didn't know about the historical preservation until recently. I'm a filmmaker, and my last 3 movies have been in Romania and Mexico and South Africa. We recreated Los Angeles in the 1970s in Cape Town, South Africa. But thank God there's still some production in Los Angeles. This street serves as an example of East Coast architecture and period architecture, so we can still film in Los Angeles. Just yesterday, they were filming in my house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And what part of Mexico did you film in?
Durango.
I was going to be my guess. We get a lot of production down in Durango. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Davina Limonik. I would like to thank you all for hearing our plea today. We are the owners of the Zwiebel house, the center house where the architect and builders lived in 1937 when they built it. I made that to take out and get signatures with, and I figured I was they were going to either call the police or give me some signatures on some letters, and a lot of people liked it. I have a lot to say, but I'm going to say that this particular neighborhood, people flock to it because of its antique feel. You turn the corner, there's Vons and big signs everywhere, and here's this little corner of serenity which really needs to be preserved. It's almost like a park. People come there purposely just to walk their dogs and their babies through it, and it needs to stay like that. There are plenty of opportunities for development. Just, I don't think this is the place to do it, and I hope that the preservation of this little neighborhood it'll be intact. I really hope that. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you. Virginia Aaron, Elaine Loring, Dean Okrand.
Hello, my name is Virginia Aaron, and I'm wondering if I could give you these 2 photographs. But I live on Guerin Street, which is a neighboring street to Agnes, and I'm here to support these people, the residents of Agnes. I've been on Guerin since 1994. We have such history in Studio City, and yet developers come in and destroy it. We need to start preserving it. Please allow this beautiful historic home to remain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elaine Loring. Thank you for your time today. My neighbors and I are here today, and we've written nearly 200 letters of support because we love our community, its past, its present, and its future, and we want to preserve a valuable architectural, cultural, and financial asset of the community. 4221 Agnes is part of the early residential development of Studio City. It sits in the original Studio City Pecan Grove, which realtors use today to describe where we live. The house is one of 3 homes built by the Zwiebels on Agnes, and it was part of sort of a extended family compound. Before we did the research, the homes were referred to as the 3 sisters, and if you see in this picture 3 sisters who live on Agnes today wearing hats representing each of the 3 houses. We learned with research they should have been the 3 brothers. Thank you to Councilmember Krikorian for his leadership, and we respectfully request you endorse the recommendation of the Cultural Heritage Commission, the Los Angeles Conservancy, the Studio City Neighborhood Council, and the Studio City Residents Association to designate this historic cultural monument. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Dean.
Yes, my name is Dean Okran.
All right.
I don't live in the neighborhood, but I walk through hundreds of neighborhoods in Los Angeles, from San Pedro to Eagle Rock, West Side. And I feel that it's important to maintain the integrity of neighborhoods. When you turn the corner and you come into a totally different type of diverse neighborhood, it's what makes Los Angeles what it is. I'm not asking that no development happen in Los Angeles, as we just heard from the last group of people, but I think unique areas should be maintained, and this house makes that neighborhood a unique neighborhood. And you chance upon it by walking, and that's pretty amazing in Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marcelo Zavala, that's what this says here. Eric Cardinal. Welcome.
Good afternoon, council members. Marcello Vavala with the Los Angeles Conservancy. We're in strong support of the nomination, and we'd like to commend Councilmember Krikorian for his leadership in prioritizing preservation of this property. We also support the name change, which is more precise. And I just wanted to add for the record as well that landmark designation is certainly not incompatible with new owners adding on to or adding amenities to their historic home to make it livable for the 21st century. We see that happen all the time. So we support the nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. After Eric Cardinal is Caro Torosian.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Eric Cardinal. I live across the street from 4221 Agnes, lived there for about 18 years. In its earlier decision, the our architecture experts at the Cultural Heritage Commission recognized that 4221 Agnes is worthy of HCM status. It's a well-preserved example of American colonial revival architecture designed by important Los Angeles architects, Arthur and Nina Zwiebel. So instead of offering more layman's observations about it, I just want to talk about one thing that came up in the first hearing and also in the submission by the new owner to this committee. He alleges that we are anti-development and NIMBYists. That couldn't be further from the truth. There has been substantial development in the area where we live, including a property opposite the Zwiebel houses that was of the same vintage, but not architecturally distinct, and we did not oppose it. 4221 Agnes should be saved because it deserves to be. I'm grateful to Councilmember Krikorian for his leadership in recognizing this and protecting this historically significant house in Studio City. I join others in urging the Plum Committee to support the designation of this property as a Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, Cara Torosian, Planning Director for Councilmember Paul Krikorian. We're honored to be here in support of this project. We join with the Neighborhood Council, the Residents Association, the Los Angeles Conservancy, many in the film industry who have utilized this location multiple times and have actually reached out to us talking about the importance of preserving it. Staff in the Cultural Heritage Commission, we'd like you guys to support the designation and support the name change so that we can designate the other 2 Zwiebel houses on the property and there can be a distinction between the 3 houses. Thank you, council members.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so given the testimony in the public record and the suggestion by Council District 2 to approve the designation, we'll move to approve the designation and support the Citywide Planning Commission recommendation.
What about the name change, Councilman?
And the name change, yes.
And just to be clear, the name change was to Albert M. I didn't catch the last name. What was the name change to?
It was to the Albert R. Bell residence.
Okay.
That's correct, right? Carl? Yes. Okay, got that. We'll incorporate that. Any objections to that motion? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you very much. Congratulations, and thank you for your patience. It's been how many hours? A couple of hours? It was well worth the wait. And wasn't Durango beautiful? Was Durango beautiful? Oh, Durango's great. Yeah. I'm from the state right south of there called Zacatecas. You should go there sometime for some filming. It's just as beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Next item, Mr. Mejia.
There are no further items, Council.
Okay, let's go to general public comment. We have two public comment cards. First is George Abrams, and second is Dawson Ben Carson.
Okay, Mayor Garcetti made an outrageous statement in the State of the City speech. He said that he won't send sanitation to clean the streets unless city council members agree to 10 cities in their district. This is extortion. The mayor has to keep the streets clean. Failure to do so would cause a public health hazard. If disease and death result from the mayor's dereliction of duty, he will be responsible. Willfully allowing a public health emergency to exist would be a criminal act, and this is certainly not much of a presidential campaign platform. If the city wants to prove that they are not NIMBYs, then they should allow for the 10 cities to exist in the vacant lot just west of this building, and also to have homeless housing in the vacant Parker Center building. Don't be a NIMBY.
Thank you. There are no other items on the agenda. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.